I wasn't just another manager at Apex Solutions. I was the woman who turned college graduates into industry leaders, who stayed until midnight fixing problems nobody else would touch. For 6 years, I built my marketing team from scratch. Every campaign we launched, every client we landed, every award we won was proof of what I could create when given the chance. My team wasn't just employees. They were my legacy. I handpicked each person, trained them through their mistakes, celebrated their victories like they were my own children. When other departments struggled, mine delivered. When budgets got tight, we found ways to do more with less. The CEO, Harrison Wells, used to call me his secret weapon. He'd stop by my office, praise my latest strategy, tell me how much the company valued my dedication. I thought that meant something. I thought loyalty flowed both ways. I believed my place at Apex was earned through blood, sweat, and results. But I was about to learn that family trumps everything. And I had no idea just how fast he would try to erase me. Brandon Wells walked into Apex Solutions like he owned the air we breathed. Fresh out of Harvard Business School, with his expensive suits and Swiss watch, he carried himself like a king surveying his future kingdom. 26 years old, and he'd never worked a real day in his life. I watched him during his first week, shadowing meetings, asking surface-level questions that showed he understood nothing about our industry. He nodded along when veteran employees explained complex strategies, but his eyes held that glazed look of someone who thought experience was just old people being stubborn. During a department head meeting, he interrupted my presentation about our quarterly results. "These numbers are interesting," he said, "but I'm wondering if we're thinking big enough. Maybe it's time for some fresh perspective." Fresh perspective. Translation: your way is outdated. He didn't look at me as a leader who'd built something from nothing. He looked at me as an obstacle blocking his path to glory. The way he smiled when he talked about modernizing our approach sent ice through my veins. But I didn't realize how ruthless his first move would be. The email arrived on a Monday morning. Subject line: all hands meeting, important organizational updates. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. In corporate speak, organizational updates usually meant someone was about to get destroyed. The conference room was packed. Harrison stood at the front, beaming with pride as he gestured toward his son. "I'm excited to announce that Brandon will be taking on expanded leadership responsibilities as our new Director of Strategic Growth." I felt the blood drain from my face as he clicked to the next slide. There it was. A new organizational chart with my team's names listed under Brandon's authority. My marketing budget, the one I'd fought for and defended every quarter, was now labeled as Strategic Growth Initiative Funding. My 6 years of building, mentoring, and creating had been wiped out with one PowerPoint slide. I sat frozen as colleagues around me nodded approvingly, either genuinely excited or smart enough to fake it. And the worst part? The betrayal wasn't finished. By Tuesday morning, Brandon had moved with military precision. My inbox flooded with transition notices, written in HR's gentle language, but the message was brutal. Everything I'd built now belonged to him. Effective immediately, the marketing team will report to Brandon Wells for all strategic initiatives. The budget I'd managed for 6 years was reallocated to support new growth objectives. My office access to financial systems was being updated to reflect current responsibilities. I watched my team members get pulled into one-on-one meetings with Brandon. They emerged looking confused and uncomfortable. When I tried to check our project management system, my access was denied. The campaigns I'd planned, the client relationships I'd nurtured, the strategies I'd developed, all locked away from me overnight. To everyone else, it looked like smart business restructuring. Young blood taking over, fresh ideas flowing. But to me, it was surgical precision. Brandon hadn't just taken my responsibilities. He'd stripped me of my identity. I started to wonder, what did they expect me to do now? Walking into the office became torture. My former team members avoided eye contact when I passed their desks. Some looked guilty, like they wanted to apologize, but didn't dare. Others just looked pitying, the way you'd look at someone whose house burned down. Jessica, my best performer who I'd promoted twice, finally approached me by the coffee machine. "Maya, I'm so sorry about all this," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "We didn't know it was coming. Brandon just told us the reporting structure changed and we should focus on the future. The future. As if I was the past that needed to be forgotten. I could see it in their faces. They wanted to be loyal to me, but they also needed their jobs. Brandon held their careers in his hands now. Speaking up for me meant risking everything they'd worked for. Their silence hurt more than Brandon's arrogance. He'd counted on this exact reaction. He knew that stealing my team would leave me isolated, powerless, forgotten, and that resolve was about to drive me to a dangerous decision. I requested a meeting with Harrison, hoping for clarity, maybe even justice. Surely he'd see that this was wrong. Surely 6 years of loyalty and results meant something. He barely looked up from his computer when I walked into his office. Before I could explain how I felt, he cut me off with a wave of his hand. Maya, I know change is hard, but this is the best move for the company's future. Brandon brings fresh energy and new perspectives. I need you to support this transition. Support the transition. Support watching my life's work get handed to someone who'd never earned it. But Harrison, my team was performing at the highest level. Our client retention rate was excellent under your leadership, he interrupted. And now Brandon can build on that foundation. This isn't personal, Maya. It's business. That's when it hit me like a punch to the gut. My years of sacrifice, my nights and weekends, my dedication, it all meant less than his son's last name. Blood was thicker than performance metrics. I walked out of his office knowing I couldn't fight this battle on his turf. But if not here, then where? Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake replaying every late night I'd spent perfecting campaigns, every client dinner where I'd represented Apex like it was my own company. I remembered the nights I'd chosen work over dates, projects over personal time, believing that dedication would be rewarded with security. All of it stolen in a single power play. My anger was raw and consuming, but slowly it began to transform into something sharper. Clarity. Brandon didn't win because he was better, smarter, or more capable. He won because the system was rigged in his favor from birth. I'd been playing a game where the rules could change overnight, where loyalty was a one-way street, where family connections mattered more than results. The realization was devastating and liberating at the same time. What if I stopped playing by their rules altogether? The thought crept in gradually, then consumed me completely. What if I didn't fight Brandon at Apex? What if I took everything I knew, every system, every client insight, every strategy I developed, and used it somewhere else? Somewhere that would weaponize my knowledge against Harrison's empire. I knew Apex's weaknesses better than anyone. I understood which clients were unhappy but too polite to complain. I knew which contracts were up for renewal and what it would take to steal them away. I had 6 years of insider knowledge that could cut straight into Brandon's shiny new kingdom. The thought was dangerous, maybe even reckless. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt power, and I already knew exactly which rival would want me. Titan Corporation. For years, Harrison spoke their name like a curse word. They were Apex's fiercest competitor, always circling our biggest clients, always trying to poach our best people. Their CEO, Victoria Stone, was everything Harrison pretended to be. Brilliant, strategic, and ruthless when necessary. I'd watched their campaigns from afar, impressed despite myself by their creativity and execution. They were good, but they lacked something crucial: insider knowledge of how Apex really operated. If I walked into Titan with my skills and my secrets, they wouldn't just hire me. They'd give me the resources to wage war against the company that threw me away. The irony was too perfect to ignore, so I sent one message that would change everything. The response came within hours. Victoria Stone's assistant called personally to set up a meeting. Within 3 days, I was sitting in Titan's glass-walled conference room, the city skyline stretching out behind me like a promise of bigger things. Victoria was everything I'd expected: sharp, direct, interested in results rather than politics. Maya, she said, reviewing my portfolio, I've been watching your work at Apex for years. Their marketing campaigns have a sophistication that frankly makes me jealous. She leaned forward. I'm curious why someone with your track record would want to leave. I told her everything. The overnight takeover, the betrayal, the years of loyalty rewarded with dismissal. Her expression grew darker with each detail. "Their loss," she said finally, sliding a folder across the table. "This is what we can offer." The numbers weren't just generous. They were a declaration of war disguised as a salary offer. All I had to do now was play it cool until I was ready to strike. My last weeks at Apex were a masterpiece of acting. I smiled when Brandon boasted about his new vision for the marketing team. I nodded when he explained strategies that were obviously copied from business school case studies. I even congratulated him when he announced his first innovative campaign, which was actually a project I developed months earlier. He had no idea I was already mentally packing my desk for war. Brandon thought my silence meant defeat. He believed I was sulking in the corner, too broken to fight back. That misconception was my greatest weapon. Every day I watched him stumble through decisions I could have made in my sleep. I saw my former team members exchange worried glances when his fresh perspectives led to confused strategies and missed deadlines. He was celebrating his victory with champagne while I sharpened my knife in the shadows. And he had no idea the clock was ticking. Titan Corporation was everything Apex pretended to be. On my first day, Victoria introduced me as the strategic mind who's going to help us dominate the market. Not as someone's replacement or a diversity hire, but as a weapon they'd acquired. My new team wasn't just talented, they were hungry. They'd been fighting for market share against companies like Apex for years, always coming close, but never quite breaking through. Now they had me, someone who knew exactly how their biggest competitor thought and operated. Within 2 weeks, we developed 3 campaign strategies that directly targeted Apex's weakest clients. Within a month, we were executing plans that hit their vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Word started spreading in the industry. Titan was moving differently, thinking bigger, hitting harder. Brandon was about to feel the first sting. Global Tech Industries had been Apex's crown jewel client for 4 years. I'd personally managed their account, knew their decision-makers, understood their pain points better than they did. When their contract came up for renewal, Brandon assumed it was automatic. He was wrong. I knew Global Tech's CEO was frustrated with Apex's recent campaign performance, but too polite to complain directly. I knew they were secretly shopping for alternatives, but hadn't found anyone who understood their industry like I did. When I walked into Global Tech's boardroom representing Titan, their relief was obvious. "Maya," their CEO said, "we've missed working with you." The contract that signed with Titan wasn't just revenue. It was my first blood drawn. I imagined Brandon's face when the cancellation notice hit his inbox, how he'd scramble to understand what went wrong. And that was only the beginning. My former colleagues at Apex started reaching out on LinkedIn. Casual messages at first, then more direct questions about my new role. The subtext was clear. Things weren't going well under Brandon's leadership. "Deadlines are slipping," Jessica confided during a coffee meetup. "Brandon makes decisions without consulting anyone, then changes his mind halfway through projects. The team is exhausted." Other messages trickled in. "Working environment has changed. Leadership style is very different, missing the old days." Even people who'd initially been excited about Brandon's fresh energy were starting to whisper doubts. The empire was showing cracks without me there to hold it together. And the cracks in his facade were widening by the day. Through industry connections, I heard about Brandon's first major meltdown. Apparently, when Global Tech canceled their contract, he exploded in the executive conference room, demanding to know how a loyal client could betray them so suddenly. Harrison had to intervene, scolding his son in front of the entire leadership team. "This is exactly why we can't take client relationships for granted," he reportedly said. "Someone dropped the ball here." For someone who thought power was inherited, public humiliation was unbearable. Brandon had gone from golden boy to liability in a matter of weeks. But that humiliation was only beginning, because my wins were stacking up faster than he could cover. At Titan, my reputation spread like wildfire. Victoria gave me expanded authority, a bigger team, and resources I'd only dreamed of at Apex. I wasn't fighting for budget scraps or justifying every expense. I was building the kind of marketing machine I'd always envisioned. My new campaigns were sharper, more creative, more effective than anything I'd produced before. Without Brandon's father looking over my shoulder, without office politics and family drama, I could finally show what I was truly capable of. Every client we won, every campaign that succeeded, every piece of positive industry coverage made Brandon's failures look louder and more obvious. Soon, the market itself would start asking questions. Marketing Weekly ran their first article in September. Titan's surprising market surge. Ad Age followed with the competitive shift nobody saw coming. Within a month, 3 major industry publications were analyzing Titan's sudden dominance in sectors where Apex had previously ruled. I didn't need to put my name in the headlines. The people who mattered already knew exactly who was behind Titan's transformation. Client decision makers, industry analysts, potential employees, they all understood the connection. More importantly, so did Brandon and Harrison, and his father couldn't ignore the headlines for long. Harrison was feeling the pressure from every direction. Board members were asking pointed questions about market share losses. Shareholders were demanding explanations for declining revenues. Major clients were publicly praising Titan's innovative approach, while subtly criticizing Apex's stagnant strategies. According to my sources still inside Apex, emergency meetings were becoming daily occurrences. Harrison had bet everything on his son's leadership, and the gamble was bleeding the company dry. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered how easily he'd dismissed my years of service. Then I got a message that confirmed his regret was real. The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The sender, Harrison Wells. The subject line, "Can we talk?" For a moment I considered deleting it without reading, but curiosity won. "Maya, I've been thinking a lot about your departure and the changes we've experienced since then. I wonder if we might find time to discuss the situation. Perhaps there are opportunities we haven't fully explored. Your experience and insights have always been valuable to Apex, and I believe there might be ways to move forward that benefit everyone. Please let me know if you'd be open to a conversation." I read it 3 times, then laughed out loud in my empty apartment. The same man who'd told me to support the transition was now begging for my return. He wasn't just asking, he was begging. 3 more emails followed over the next week, each more desperate than the last. Harrison wanted to explore possibilities and discuss new opportunities. He mentioned reconsidering the organizational structure and recognizing valuable contributions. The irony was delicious. The man who discarded me like yesterday's newspaper now wanted to negotiate my return. But I'd already chosen my side, and I was winning the war he'd started. I knew exactly how to respond to his desperation, and my reply would cut deeper than any lost deal. I crafted my response carefully, then read it aloud to make sure every word landed like I intended. "Harrison, skills can't be stolen, and loyalty abused will always return as a weapon. Best of luck with your strategic initiatives." Then I hit send. I didn't need to say more. My absence was already speaking louder than any words could. Every client Titan won, every campaign that succeeded, every industry article praising our work was another nail in the coffin of his decision to cast me aside. But Brandon's downfall wasn't finished yet. Brandon wasn't just failing, he was unraveling publicly. Missed deadlines became missed opportunities. Angry clients became former clients. His team, once loyal to me, now looked mutinous under his clueless leadership. Industry gossip painted an ugly picture. Brandon screaming at subordinates, making impossible demands, blaming everyone except himself for the disasters mounting around him. What he'd thought was a throne had become a trap, and every day brought new evidence of his incompetence. Meanwhile, my success with Titan was the mirror he couldn't escape. Every article about our growth was an implicit criticism of his leadership. Every client we won was proof of what he'd lost when he stole my team. The board was watching, and they were about to act. The announcement came 6 months after Brandon's triumphant takeover. Organizational restructuring to better serve client needs. In corporate language, that meant heads were about to roll. Brandon was quietly reassigned to a smaller role in business development, stripped of the marketing team and budget he'd flaunted so arrogantly. The strategic growth initiative was dissolved. Several board members had privately demanded accountability for the market share losses. Harrison's empire was cracked and bleeding, hemorrhaging clients to competitors like Titan. His son's golden boy status had become a liability that threatened the entire company's future. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. Just keep winning. But the final irony still waited to land. In the end, Brandon got exactly what he'd wanted. The title on his business card, the corner office, the team of people reporting to him. But he also got something he'd never expected, the crushing weight of consequences. His fresh perspective had cost Apex millions in lost revenue. His innovative strategies had driven away clients who'd been loyal for years. His modern leadership had created chaos where there had once been excellence. And me? I got something far more valuable than revenge. I got freedom to build something better, recognition for work that carried my signature, and the deep satisfaction of knowing that my absence echoed louder than my presence ever had. The empire that pushed me aside now felt my impact in every quarterly report. And I wasn't finished confessing. So here's my confession. I didn't fight Brandon on his father's turf where family connections outweighed merit. I didn't beg for my job back or grovel for recognition. Instead, I walked away and built something stronger, something that proved my worth every single day. Every client Titan won was revenge served in plain sight. Every industry award we received was validation written in headlines. Every time Harrison saw our success story, he was reminded of the talent he'd thrown away for nepotism. Brandon thought stealing my team would bury me. He thought removing my budget would break me. He thought I'd disappear quietly, leaving him with the glory of my work. He was wrong about everything. I don't need a famous last name to win. I don't need inheritance to succeed. I just need the things he'll never have. Skills I earned through years of grinding, experience I built through actual work, and a reputation I created with my own hands. And that's why, even now, I'm still smiling.